Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is CF Claire, and I'm an aspiring writer and a full-time mom to a 4.5-year-old who is home with me and a 6-year-old who goes to school. So we're going to do a recap of how Q1 went. This is my first time fully using the HB90 planning method. I really enjoy it. There's not very much that I think I do differently. So let's look at what Q1 goals were, how they went, and then we'll get into what the Q2 goals are. So I had 3 goals that I was working on, and there were 3 projects that I was hoping to work on. The third goal was a revising goal of a project that I wrote last year that I was hoping to revise down to the second draft. And I very quickly into the first quarter realized that there was not going to be enough time, and so I dropped that goal and that project for this quarter. So that left 2 main goals that I was hoping to accomplish with 2 projects. The biggest hope was that I would finish the first draft of both my A project, which is a shifter romance, Project Chance, as well as my B project, which is a middle grade fantasy trilogy, and I was hoping to finish the first draft of the first book. I did not even finish outlining the trilogy, let alone writing the first book. But I did write the first draft of Project Chance. And all of the other things that I learned and did in the quarter make it feel like it was very successful, even though, I mean, technically on paper, like it wasn't. So when I made these goals, I made them about different parts of the writing process rather than the projects. And I don't know that I will do that again. I think I prefer making the goals really targeted on which project I'm working on, because initially, like, the first goal was meant to apply to both projects because it was a goal about how long I was hoping to spend writing each chapter. So that's something that I'm going to change in the second quarter. When I look at the notes that I made for writing Project Chance, I did technically achieve this goal because the actual writing time for most chapters that I wrote was about an hour and 15 minutes of literally typing. However, there was quite a bit of time before that for each chapter of taking what I had written in my chapter bullet points and bringing that over to what I thought would be a scene, to like the scenes within the chapter. So there was like some middle ground that was very frustrating from the outline I had to the actual typing, which made me realize that I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be sitting down with an outline that's down to the scene level so I can just write. So that's something that I'm working on in Q2. As I'm doing my second draft, I'm going to be getting everything down to the scene level first. I think that will really help the writing process, as well as make it more fun, which is something that I struggle with early drafts, especially with first drafts. And it was a huge roadblock. Just the actual process of writing a first draft is difficult for me to let myself write at the lower level that I want to in order to just get the main ideas on the page, because I have for many years been like a heavy self-editor and like editing as I go and not making much progress and like blah blah blah. All the reasons why I want to write quickly in the first draft and then take a lot longer in successive drafts. So that's a change I'm going to be making in the second quarter as I work on the second draft of Project Chance. I'll be making sure I'm using a scene outline. That is going to be part of the revision process, is getting down to a scene outline, and then the actual second draft writing process is a separate process. I had already written the first quarter of the book, which was 8 chapters, and there were 16 chapters that I wrote between the second and fourth quarters of the book. So all told, I spent about 215 task blocks working on Project Chance. The second goal that I had was to do all of the outlining for Project Conjurer. So I had thought, like, if I was able to loosely outline the trilogy and figure out main things that I wanted to happen in each of the 3 books, and then fully outline the first book, I was hoping that doing that would be about 125 task blocks. And that was based on nothing. I didn't know. Like, I've never outlined a trilogy down to this point before. I feel really good about what I did as far as the outlining goes. I outlined much more than I had thought I would be able to for the trilogy as a whole. And I love where it's going. I love the way it's shaping up. I love everything about it. I'm so in love with that project. And I outlined quite a bit of the first book, but I did not fully... I didn't fully outline it. However, all of the stuff that I did for it took 144 task blocks. So while I did fail the goal, it was based on nothing, and I feel really, really good about what I did. So that's how the goals went. Technically, I failed all of them, right? But I feel so good about it, and I feel like where I am as far as my projects, as well as understanding myself and my own process better now versus when I started in January. I feel like I've made so much progress. I'm so pleased. I'm so proud, and I'm ready to just let's keep going, When I was looking at the quarterly review pages that Sarah Cannon has, which I love those. They're so helpful. There were a couple things that stood out to me that I really want to do differently. So there's a question about, in what ways did you support yourself and your mental health this quarter, and how can you continue to do this even more next quarter? I felt very good about how I supported myself. I feel like I was not overly critical of myself, or that essentially I failed, right? But I feel really good about what I did. So the things that I really realized I need to work on are making sure that I have meal plans, because I am the cook of the family, and if I don't cook, there is no food. And every single day it was like, oh my God, what are we eating? Ugh. And then if I didn't think about it until 2:00 in the afternoon, then it was like, oh my God, and what do we even have in the house? It was this daily stressor, which is not new. This is how it has always been. And we've gone in waves where we meal plan, or sometimes we meal prep. But at this stage, we were not doing any of that stuff. And it was so much. So making sure that I meal plan is going to be huge. Another big thing is not watching any news until I have already done all of my writing. I live in Massachusetts. I live in America. The news, everything is crazy. It's so disheartening. I'm not gonna dwell on it. This is not a channel where I want to be overly political, but also to be perfectly clear, I have loved ones, people I respect, people I adore, people who are very smart, who voted for Trump, who think he is not doing a bad job. And I know that that's an opinion that other smart, rational, compassionate people have. And there is something going on with the way that they are consuming media, or some sort of disconnect between what they see and what they believe. I don't know. I know that there are good, amazing people who do think Trump is doing a good job. And that is absolutely insane to me. To put it in a more writer kind of way, if I'm thinking of my list of values, the highest value that I hold that makes a life good is being compassionate. And whatever your end goal, whether it's compassionate or not, if the means that you take to achieve that goal are not compassionate, then it's not worth it. So if you even want to be oh, but Trump's trying to do this good thing, the way that he's doing it is complete horseshit. So it doesn't really, that's not an excuse. So, and to be quite honest, he is, if you want to think of compassionate people, Trump is not on the list, right? So, okay, that's enough of that. But it's a lot to try to keep up with what the fuck is going on. I lost so many days to mental health incapacity because of this fucking tariff stuff going on. So making sure I don't watch media until I have done everything I need to do in a day, in case something crazy happens again and it derails me. Trying to instigate a 5:30 p.m. everyone choose their favorite song and let's all as a family clean the house for, I mean, about 15 minutes because, you know, 4 people, one song, it's like 12 minutes, whatever. So that would be great because at the end of the day, like my husband and I have no energy, so we don't want to do anything. And the house is a mess because, you know, that's life with young children and being home all day. So then I, a lot of times in the morning, would be the adult home and be like, I can't live with things the way they are. So before I do anything, I need to like clean the house. So that is a huge time suck. So that's something we're going to do a little bit different. And making sure that my writing time is sacred because I end up doing a lot of vlogging or other projects during my writing time. And then there isn't really another good time to write. So that's really important, especially as we're getting into the warmer months. And I'm an avid gardener. And there's a lot of stuff. It's very easy to lose a lot of time in the garden, and it's very enjoyable. I want to make sure that I am losing time, but not my writing time. So that was Q1. There's a couple other changes that I want to make as we go into Q2. The biggest change that I want to try making has to do with a mindset shift. I think a lot of people who, especially if you are not already published and have wanted to be published for years, it's so easy to feel that like anxiety of like just pushing and pushing to get done with the project so that you can be published finally. And I certainly feel that very strongly. But I am trying to move away from that and allow myself to enjoy every part of the writing process, knowing that this is something I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life and it doesn't need to be like a race to the finish line. And in fact, what I want to be doing is setting myself up so that I can be taking advantage of what it means to be a self-published author in the romance sphere, which means rapid release within a series is like very beneficial. I don't need to have this arbitrary end date that I'm trying to race towards. And in fact, something that I've definitely found is very beneficial for me is I'm an extremely obsessive person. So I get really consumed by whatever project I'm working on at the time. And that's why it is so important to have more than one project for me, because I get so consumed and I make so much progress. And then I need to step all the way back and get some distance from it. And so then I can work on another project and get consumed by that. So then by the time I need to step away from that project, I can look with more fresh eyes at the first project I've been working on. And that works really well for me. However, I have so many ideas for books that I really want to write that are in these varying stages of being written. And even having two main projects, there's still like an anxiety that I feel. It's not about, like, publishing doesn't feel like the end goal for that anxiety to go away. It's writing of the books that feels like what would help the anxiety go away. And so making progress on only 2 books is like not enough. So I did something last week which was really fun. It felt like really indulgent. I had done all of my task blocks that I needed to do or that I had planned to do during the week. And then on the weekend, when I usually would be like, even though I didn't schedule myself to work on the weekend in case I couldn't, because that happens often, I do usually try to work on the weekends because I like it. I want to. But I let myself work on the weekends on a completely different project that I had felt pulled to. And that was so nice. That was so nice. It was such a good break. And then when I came back at the beginning of the next week to the actual project focuses that I had, I felt invigorated. I was excited. I think part of the reason I had such a higher task block amount this last quarter than what I had projected is because I did work so much on the weekends that I had not planned to be able to do. And even though that felt so good, I'm going to not expect that of myself, and I'm going to let myself on the weekends just work on anything I want. And I think that it's going to help in the long run anyways, because all of the things that I'm working on the weekend are things that I'm going to eventually be, like, they're going to be the main project at some point. And so I'll just be that much further along in the process. So it all sort of like evens out. It's just, I don't know. I think it will be more fun for me. So we're going to try that out and see how that goes. So for the second quarter, I have myself scheduled for 252 task blocks, which is, I think, 3 more than last quarter. That definitely feels very doable. So I only have 2 goals for this quarter, but the first goal is like a 2-parter. This goal feels doable. Each week I have scheduled about 22 task blocks available. So to reach that good goal for the revision plan is about 3 weeks. And to get the best goal, it would be like about 2 weeks worth of work. And as far as the actual writing of draft 2, that's probably a couple weeks of work. At the moment, there are, I believe, 38 chapters and a very short prologue and epilogue. The second goal is to just finish outlining that first book of the Conjurer series and feel really good about how it's outlined. All of these task blocks that I have planned come to less than 252 task blocks, and I am hoping that they are accurate. And then if I do accomplish both of those things, then I could start writing the first draft of the first book of the Conjurer series, which had initially been my 3rd goal for this quarter, but as I was looking at how long I thought things would take, I was like, I don't have the amount of time blocks to dedicate to that I think I would need to. So as much as I so badly want by the end of June to have that first draft of the book, I don't think it's realistic. Hopefully it will happen anyways. So that's where we're at with that. Ideally, what I'll do is I'll finish revising Project Chance, and then I'll take a break from it and let things sort of sit, and I'll start working on finishing that outline for Project Conjurer. And then by the time I'm done with Project Conjurer's outline, I would go back, look at what I had come up with for the outline for Project Chance, and then see if there were any like last minute tweaks I want to do to it before doing the writing for it. So that's like how I'm hoping it will play out, but I'm not going to make myself do that. Sometimes I just like hit a wall with a project and I need to switch over, and so I'll let myself do that if I need to. But with everything that I found out from the first quarter, I have revised my year goals. So I'll just flash that up. In red, I have how long I think around it will take to do those pieces of work. And the blue are things that I added. I clarified what I think a 3rd draft and a 4th draft would mean for me. And I'm really hoping that I'm able to write a draft of Project Chance every quarter, because it seems like that is feasible and that would be really helpful. I don't know if this is like ridiculous or not, but like when I was sitting down and thinking of what each draft I think I would want to do with it, I think it would take 6 drafts before feeling like I had like a final product that I would want to publish. So getting to the end of a 4th draft at the end of this year would be great. And I did strike off doing an outline for the 3rd book in the series, Project Baby, because I think there's not time for that. I'm hoping to be wrong. I'm hoping that that's one of the projects I'll feel drawn to on the weekend, and maybe even just like do the outline of by the end of the year anyways, just like on weekends. Here's my Kanban board for Q2. All of the blue is stuff for Project Chance, and all the pink is stuff for the first book of Project Conjurer. And one thing I did do differently this quarter is on all of the revising stuff that I have, I put an estimate of how many task blocks I think it will take to do, and that's helping me plan like what I'm putting in that to-do column so that I'm not like over scheduling myself. So I have been liking that. It's not always accurate. Like something I thought would take like 4 or 5 task blocks to complete, I actually completed in like 10 minutes. But it's a nice estimate. So that is what I've got going on. I hope the first quarter went really well for you guys. I hope your writing's going well, and good luck in the second quarter. And I'll see you in the next video.